guess what? I got a fever.
You give me fever, fever in the morning, a fever all through the night.
Okay, folks, welcome to episode 86 of the Dynasty Fever podcast. Neither of us canceled on each other. We're recording as scheduled on our Thursday night that we chose. The gang is back together again. The episode 86 is, of course, the
New York Jets select Johnny Mitchell, tight end, Nebraska.
So New York becomes tight end.
So yes, the famous Jets draft bloopers video. That was 1992 when they picked Johnny Mitchell, Nebraska tight end, wore number 86 for the Jets. And I think the Berman comment about tight end, I want to say that the Giants, I think, picked a tight end that year too in 92. Would that be too early for Shockey? I don't know.
Yeah, that's too early for Shockey.
Yeah. So, but the dulcet tones that you just heard is, of course, my co-host Jesse Schneeman. Jesse, how you doing?
Amazing. I mean,
God bless.
Fighting the urge. God bless. And fighting the urge to scream and yell. That's what I do on my podcast. But 86 is a very notable Eagles tight end as well, Zach Ertz.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I believe, I'm almost certain, back in the day, it was Arkansas Fred Barnett, who was like the only wide receiver we had for a decade after Mike Quick.
Okay. Well, if you're tuning in to Dynasty Fever, I don't know. I want to come up with a tagline for us at some point. I've been thinking about like the best Dynasty show your league mates don't know about, or something about thoughtful conversations, because I think we have some pretty good discussions here, and I always have a lot more questions than I have answers. And I am very, especially with rookie season, very skeptical of people with really strong takes that they're certain about, on a lot of these guys outside
at
of
this
maybe
point, especially.
Yeah. And so, I don't like when I tune into podcasts and I hear, here's 5 guys you need to buy right now to dominate. And I'm just like, bro, but like, hey, that's what sells. And maybe that's why I made
yeah, but
no
that's not,
money
we're not selling. We're not
We're
selling
not
anything.
selling.
We're just here to help people, man. We're gonna have a good time and help people. That's the only reason I do this, is because it's fun. And I feel like I've always felt like we can do it better than the other people because we give a shit, right? We give a shit about the right things.
And tonight, we're going to give a shit about rookies. It's rookie season. This is going to be our early rookie takes episode. Jesse and I have kind of intentionally not talked a lot about any of these guys, really. I mean, we exchanged a little bit about McConkey and Corley in our DMs, and we just maybe talked for like 14 seconds about Marshawn Lloyd before we got on. So we're gonna get some fresh reactions to each other's opinions. We haven't podcasted for a while. Jesse took the month off of January, which is a great move. I thought I was going to have a couple episodes where maybe solo or a guest, but I got kind of busy and said, you know what, it's a good move. Let's take the month off. So we haven't talked about much of anything really in a while, especially synchronously in real time. Where are you at now in your rookie process? How are you approaching things this year?
So I've got a list of 30 prospects right now that are on my radar. I have watched something on all of them. All right. So to be perfectly honest, like the last 10 or so guys, it's going to be like maybe a 10-minute highlight package. Mm-hmm. So I know what they look like. I've read, I've looked at their numbers. I've kind of read up on them and seen what other people think and have done my compiling, but I haven't dug in and taken the notes. Mm-hmm. My top 20 guys, I've actually watched cut up all 22 and develop strong opinions. But then my process is I do that once. I get it. I get an opinion, an impression of these guys, what I think of them. And then I'll go back and I'll take specific notes of what I like and what I don't like. And then try to firm up a comp at that point as well. But that's like, I'm going to be doing that, but that's likely not going to be finished until after the combine. And then I'll take the combine numbers and sort of like the Kuipers and the Daniel Jeremiahs and the guys that are plugged into the NFL voices, listen to them about where guys are likely to go. And that's when I start forming opinions, like real opinions, of where I take guys. But I will say this, even though I'm early on in the process, I've identified a drop off. Like there's 7 elite players for me right now.
Yeah, I would say, I'm in the streets a lot. And if people are wondering, my process is different from Jesse's. There's some overlap, but I think Jesse, don't want to put words in your mouth, you consider yourself sort of, you're working on being an evaluator of talent, right?
Sure.
Whereas I am sort of like, I do watch like the cut up stuff on the Nerds Film Room. I watch, people, hit the space bar and slow down the tape and show me things. Like I'll do that, but a lot of it is research. I'm in NFL mock draft database where, what does it look like where these guys are going? I'm listening to podcasts. I'm talking to people in Discord, seeing what the vibes are. I'm taking notes on things that are good and bad. I have this huge spreadsheet that I do that's going to have like 1 million pages in it and that sort of thing. And it's more of like a research based approach. And then like after I soak in all that research, I kind of come to my conclusions. And so, yeah, right now I've got guys in some buckets and some tiers, but I agree. Like in the streets, like pretty much the thinking is there's a top 7, kind of like we had a top 6 last year. And then after that, it's a little more open. Overall, the landscape of the 2024 class, keeping in mind that there's, that top 7, anything stand out to you that might be, I don't know, something that is like, oh, a surprise, or, oh, I really need to look into that more, or, oh, this is really different from the past couple classes. Any sort of like bigger summaries of the 2024 class that besides the drop off at after the first 7?
Sure. Yeah. And that's validating to hear. I actually didn't realize that was kind of a consensus. There was 7 elite. So that was just kind of from what I've been doing on my own. So that's validating. Good to hear. Whereas in past years, I feel as though 110 through 202 was like last year was the Wild West. There was no really defined players. There was nobody there weren't even like my guys in that range. Everybody was really flat. And I feel like everybody felt there was a huge drop off. Now there were supreme talents that you could jump up and get in there, like Sam Laporta. The fantasy football tight end 1 was available in the early to mid second round. So like, I'm not saying that the talent was flat, just our opinions of them were. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be different this year. I think everybody's going to have a my guy after 7. There's just so many different types of receivers available, so many guys that do so many different things. It's just such a fun class. And I may be parroting some things that other people are saying, but I mean, it really is 5 different running backs could be the RB1 at this point. Mm-hmm. There are no Bijans or Jahmyr Gibbs, but there are guys that could, there are guys that could be A-Chain. Not that there's an A-Chain like clone, anybody that does what he does, but there absolutely could be a Trey Benson or Corum that's taken in the late first, early second that jumps up to be like a top 10. Like A-Chain's a top 10 dynasty running back right now, right? Maybe even top 5 in some people's books.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I feel like one or more of these guys could do that, could be that good, and could be like very underrated. And then
Yeah.
I
If they
also
get
feel
that
like
kind of draft capital, if they get real life draft capital of end of the first, early second, is that what you're talking about? Or they're going to get into there in a rookie draft because they're getting like day 2 draft capital in real life.
well, like A Chain was what, second round, third round?
Which real life? Third round.
Yeah, real life. Yeah,
Yeah,
third
yeah, yeah.
round. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm saying a guy that could go in the
Yeah.
third
Okay.
round,
Hmm.
and we take early second and
Yeah.
could just explode. That could happen.
Mhm.
Also, you could. There's absolutely a Kendra Miller factor in there. You know, like where the guy could just completely bust.
Well, I mean, Miller was hurt a lot this year. You know, like I'm
Yeah, well,
kind
that
of
was part of the knock against him,
yeah,
though.
I'm kind of optimistic about Miller. Like the bigger disappointment to me was Tank Bigsby. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I'm less sure about him bouncing back. But so are your
sure.
first 7 essentially the 3 quarterbacks, the 3 big receivers, and Bowers? That's where you're at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think that personally don't think that we need to spend a ton of time on these guys. I
No.
mean, all I really need to say is I have not found really any knocks on any of them so far, and I think that they're all elite. Like all 7 of these guys, I would take it over JSN last year.
Okay. Hmm.
You know, I think Gibbs kind of fits in there somewhere.
Hmm.
But like, I'd have a hard time probably. You know, like Caleb is if Caleb came out last year, he'd have been the 101 easily.
Hmm.
And I probably have Drake and Jaden Daniels just pretty much in there, lumped in there with like Stroud and Bryce and AR as they were prospects. I think Jaden Daniels probably a little better prospect than AR was last year.
Uh,
Like he had the actual success in
that's
college.
one thing I was gonna ask you about, like because so let's get into QBs then. Let's start with because we're gonna
Sure.
go positionally anyway. Let's start with QBs. I think with QBs, what I'm looking at here is obviously we have the big 3, right? I think obviously they're all probably gonna go, at least what we think right now. They're all gonna go in the first 6 real life picks or so, right? The Giants are 6th.
I'm pretty sure they're going to go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, well, that's very possible. Yeah. So you kind of have to, with that draft capital and in a super flex league, invest in them. And so I get that. I kind of think, all things considered, the way I have it right now is Caleb, Marvin, and Neighbors, and then the quarterback, the other 2.
Oh wow! Oh, you have Neighbors up there.
The way that I'm looking at it, first of all, having Neighbors that close to Marvin is more about a year from now. Would not be surprised. Not that we're talking about QBs, but right. But anyway, so I guess getting to the point is that I think right now what I'm looking at in startup mocks in Superflex is, and I haven't really participated in one, just kind of looking at the draft boards and listening to people. People are double tapping less, and they're doing 2 out of the first 3 rounds of quarterbacks less, and trying to get that second QB in round 4, 5, 6, right? So I'm kind of thinking about, well, what does that look like in a rookie draft? Would that mean, that, if that's the way folks are going, as saying like, well, I can get my QB2 later because there's been so much disappointment, and also the QBs are flat after like the first 11 or 12, so maybe the rookie draft reflects that anyway. But with the QBs and the first 3 that we have, the Daniels AR comparison is where I want to where I wanted to land with this. AR to me, more upside in the talent and traits. Jaden Daniels already more proven production, but with Jaden Daniels, I don't want to be skeptical. I don't want to use that as the word, because what I see, what people I trust, and what they see is very good, right? Not a year ago, but a little more than a year ago, we were saying, oh man, too bad those LSU receivers have to catch balls from Jaden Daniels. They might as well start Garrett Nussmeier. And within a year, right, he became Heisman, right? Top 5 NFL pick. And, there are some folks who say the scheme did some of the work, the receivers did some of the work, not in an Addison Pickett way, but, it's hard to pull those apart because everybody's entangled. And maybe all three guys took a step together, neighbors Thomas and Daniels. But I am not as excited about Daniels or Drake May as I was about any of the 3 quarterbacks that came out last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So Daniels is a much better passer than AR is currently. So, all right, all of those things that you said about Daniels, by the way, before I get into the comparison with AR, could have been said about Joe Burrow.
Fair.
So, and it's literally the same.
But Joe
school,
Burrow's white and he went 101. So come on.
Yeah, right. So I have no problem with a young man progressing in his talent, like learning on the job and getting better as he does it. And it was obvious. Like, it was obvious if you watch his tape this year, he got better.
Yeah, he did.
As the year went on. Like, he was learning and getting better as the year went on. I don't know him, but that tells me that he may be a Jalen Hurts level worker. He may just be, that dedicated to his craft that he's studying and working hard, and maybe it's just starting to click for him. Now onto the comparison with AR. Actually, I'd rather compare him to Lamar. I mean, I think he's not quite the rusher that Lamar or AR. He's probably more on the level of Hurts, actually, as a rusher. Not exactly the same kind of rusher. Definitely more athletic. And probably a better rusher.
Faster and shiftier, not as powerful.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And he's more in that tier. But as a passer, he's much more polished than Lamar was coming out, and much more polished than AR. I really like him as a passer. What's going to be just supremely important for him is that he goes to the right scheme, goes to the right team with the right coaches and the right scheme. And if that's New England, I have no confidence in that.
Okay. Right. So first of all, by the way, I have this column in my spreadsheet for comps, and some of them are ones that I'll come up with. And then some of them are ones that other people do because they're much better at it than I am. I forget who said it, but Lamar is in there for as one of the comps for Daniels as far as being maybe not quite the rusher that say Anthony Richardson is, but definitely a more polished passer coming out. And then you get to the other point of no matter what we say about quarterbacks, and we could write a dissertation about Caleb Williams, there's all the positives and negatives, and he's he's boom bust. There's bust potential there. If he gets the thing with quarterbacks that I'm trying to get at is, one, it's between the ears, and two, it's about fit. It's about scheme and offensive line and coaching and that sort of thing, which we saw, CJ Stroud an example of. Not knocking Stroud's talent. He's a super passer. He can deliver the football in tight windows like a motherfucker. But, I think there are certain teams that if he went to, he wouldn't have anywhere near the season that he did this year.
Sure, it clicked right off the bat, like Herbert style. There's probably the two that I think I can remember that just right off the bat clicked. Like
Caleb, if he gets a bad offensive line, which is really a lot of the bad stuff that he put on tape is directly connected to the bad offensive line at USC. But so if he gets a bad offensive line, or in some way in the development doesn't learn to kind of be listen, kind of rein in a little bit, the way Matt Waldman put it was great, or was it Matt Waldman? Somebody else. Great throw, don't fucking ever do it again. Right? Take what's given to you more. Have less. Jason DiRienzo, Lejeune's partner, called it arm ego. Right? He's not going to get away with this shit in the pros. Right? So, but if
So
if
we're
he
gonna
can-
call him. We're gonna call him Willie Mays Hayes.
right, exactly, right. So, like, if he can get in that situation, he's got tons of ceiling. Doesn't that floor is low, right? Probably lower than
You know,
Drake May's floor. Probably lower than Drake May's floor, I think. Yeah.
you know what's funny to me? You know who else you're also describing in this class?
I don't know who.
Spencer Rattler.
Kind
But
of,
just
yeah.
on a more extreme
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Like, the worry about what's between the ears is really, really high. Like that guy thinks he can throw the ball through a brick wall, and a receiver will catch it afterwards. He absolutely.
Well, your buddy Joe Milton can. How did somebody put it? Can throw the ball through the barn if he could ever hit it.
Yeah, if he could ever hit it, that's a good one.
Yeah. So,
but Rattler's probably got the best arm in this class. It's freaking rocket.
and he's on a redemption part of his story arc, which is interesting, right? Like he's gone from conceited wild child to like, I learned I'm a mature leader now, but I still don't think, talent wise. But anyway, so and I think the two teams that are sitting up there in those top 6 waiting to destroy our dreams are the Patriots and Giants. Whether it's Marvin Harrison, whether it's Jaden Daniels, right? Like I don't want anybody trade down, take a tackle.
I'm okay with the Giants. I mean, it would be ugly, but I'm okay with the coaching staff. I'll say that. Like Kafka and Dable, I trust. But yeah, it'd be ugly. Like what's gonna happen with Daniel Jones and blah blah blah. And you might have both of them there at the same time.
Yeah,
really wouldn't want to see that. But what I think would happen is it wouldn't fall to that somebody would trade up to 2 or 3 if New England or the Commandos didn't want to take them.
Did you say Commandos?
Yes, that's what
that's cool. I love it. God bless. That's great.
God bless.
That's great. Do you remember that movie Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
With Arnold, yeah. That's also Alyssa Milano was in that movie.
Yeah. Some very early Alyssa Milano. Yeah,
she was my teenage heartthrob. Her and Kelly Bundy.
I was just a couple years below you, so it's more of like my tween age, crush. Watching Who's the Boss.
Yeah, we're exactly the same age, so I always felt like we were destined. And she like dated baseball players, and that was my dream.
Who's around your age who I absolutely adore for all sorts of reasons? Natasha Lyonne.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can't stand her.
Okay.
I can't stand her. It's what it is. It's the voice. Although I do feel bad for her.
I love
it. The voice is like, you're not Groucho, you're not a Marx brother. Okay, stop.
Okay,
it annoys the shit out of me.
I could see that. It can get shticky. I understand that. Yeah.
If she was Harpo, I'd be fine because then I wouldn't have to hear the voice. But yeah, I actually have a lot of empathy for her. I feel bad for her because she apparently endured a lot dating Fred Armisen as long as she did. Apparently, he's a bit of a sociopath and emotional abuser is what
I didn't know any of that. I just know her, her story recovering from addiction and things like that, and just, yeah.
I'm sorry, Fred. You're a wonderful guy if you're listening, and I know you are.
Yeah. Let's talk about Portland, dude.
Yeah, but she did overcome addiction and like resurrected her career. So a lot of props for that. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want your thoughts on Nix and JJ McCarthy, because here's my take on the QB class. After those 3, nobody should be starting day 1. Nix may have to because he's already 24, right? So what are you gonna? You're not gonna Jordan Love him, right? But I don't want him starting day 1. I've seen Nix and McCarthy mocked as early as like 12 to like Denver, or like 13 or whatever to the Raiders, right? I've also seen the idea that these are the quarterbacks that someone's going to trade up into the late first to grab to get that extra, the 5th-year option. Where do Nix and McCarthy have to go, draft capital wise or team wise, whatever, where you're saying I'm going to draft McCarthy and Knicks 111 and 112 and not say the mid second to late second where they're going in mocks now because nobody knows who's drafted them.
Oh yeah, you absolutely have to prove it to me. Yeah, absolutely has to go in the first round. I'd prefer middle of the first round, but late first round is fine. But yeah, there's no chance I'm taking either of those guys. And I don't really believe that that's going to happen right now. If it happens, fine. I'm not saying it's not going to. It's just in my heart, I'm feeling a Ritter, Matt, whatever his name was, that was supposed to be the QB1 of that class.
Matt Corral.
Matt Corral. Like, I'm feeling that vibe out of these guys. And also,
I think they're better than that, especially JJ. It's just for me, it's going to be about where they picked and where's the fit, you know. Yeah.
But also, can we throw a little Penix in there? That's what you said.
I don't want to say I'm out on Penix. I mean, I love Penix. I want more Penix
too
in my life.
Yes, always more Penix.
Penix is powerful.
Yes.
But
he's a lefty Penix.
Age, medicals, and then questions beyond the deep ball. Like, honestly, he's not even the best Michael P. quarterback in the draft.
Who is?
Michael Pratt from Tulane.
Oh, okay.
Michael Pratt from Tulane, to me, has a lower ceiling than probably 6 or 7 quarterbacks in this particular draft. But I would not be surprised if 3 years from now, Nix, Penix, Rattler have all burned out of the league. Maybe McCarthy, and Pratt's still there as like a high end backup that we have as dynasty quarterback 32 every year.
Yeah, none of these guys impress me. Rattler's the only one that I could see actually like that I think actually has the talent to be worth drafting at this point. Like he's the only one I could see jumping up and be like a top 12 dynasty quarterback if it all comes together. Like he settles down, plays within the system, and uses his arm strength and his athleticism, his off structure within the system, and allows himself to be coached. The guy could be a hell of a quarterback.
I think JJ can be that.
I think Rattler, with the right brain in his head, could be way better than Baker Mayfield. Way better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's like the comp that I hear for him a lot. My worry with him, though, is that doesn't happen often. Like a guy makes a total turnaround of who he is as a person, really. So, like, my worry is that his ceiling is Taylor Heineke / Sam Howell. Like someone that will go out there and sling it, but probably is going to throw you interceptions. He's going to look good at times. Maybe Gardner, like if Gardner had a strong arm kind of thing, but like my worry is that's his ceiling, and a lot has to happen to get there. Because those guys were better all around quarterbacks than he is coming out.
So I've mentioned JJ twice now positively. No love for JJ. A lot of people are saying he are mocking him to the Rams at 19, sits behind Stafford for a year or so, gets the McVay magic. Because the thing is, like Knicks, this is where Knicks does have some positives. NFL teams are going to love the it factor, the leadership, the grit, that sort of stuff, the intangibles. Intangibles matter. I know people think it's vibesy, but that shit matters, and it especially matters for quarterbacks. Like Knicks, as much as he doesn't throw balls over the middle and or more than 10 yards much, like killed the interviews at the Senior Bowl. I think J.J. McCarthy's an interview guy as well. And I also think that he's got enough there with the talent, the mobility, the arm talent to be like a Purdy where I've come to realize that it's yes and. It is Purdy's better than I thought, but also the system and the weapons are helping him.
It's funny you said it, yes and. I'm calling this tier of Bo Nix, McCarthy. I'm always going to put Penix in.
Yeah, so you love Penix. I mean, you've been mentioning Penix for a long time. Yeah.
I'm calling this whole tier if then.
Yeah, sure. And that's
If
really
if that
it's quarterbacks. Yeah, it's
Yeah. If what you say happens, if the Rams take one of these guys and decides to groom him, especially Mark McCarthy, I think that is a good fit. If that happens, then I'm interested.
Mhm.
All right. As of now, not really. No, they're not. These guys aren't in my plans.
What position you want to go to next?
Let's do wide receiver.
Okay. So
I mean, let's devote the meat of the show to what this really.
So the
really is.
20. So here, I'm going to make a statement, and then you tell me if it's true. The 2024 wide receiver class is deep, though slightly old, and it's bigger than the 2023 class as far as like size. There's more 6'4" guys in there. But after the first 6 or 7, it's kind of who the fuck knows.
I would say after the first 3.
Okay.
And
so you've got your big 3, and you seem to like Adunze more than I do. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Say whatever you were going to say. Yeah.
I want to address the old part.
Okay.
So, not to influence your process. Well, I do want to influence your process, but not to say what you're doing is wrong. But I am not paying any attention to age anymore. These guys are being offered millions of dollars to stay in college. So if they're old, that means they're rich and they're polished. It doesn't necessarily, and we've seen even before the NIL, we've seen plenty of seniors coming out recently. Kind of some of these guys sort of out of nowhere for me, smaller schools, that kind of thing, come out and just be successful right away. I mean, Puka, right? That's an extreme example. So like age, I don't care. I think it's actually broken a lot of these analytics models, like because they're like the breakout age is still a thing, but like the early declare or the early early declare for the draft, it doesn't really matter anymore.
That's less important.
Peter Howard used to talk about how important that was, and that like guys staying in their senior years for my model and da 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 da. It kind of broke that whole thing at this point. So
I happen to agree with you. I happen to agree with you to an extent. Like I understand that what NIL is doing, and that's transforming things. And I think one thing that we got caught up in last year with size, maybe if not age, was that the data hadn't caught up to like the littles doing well. And so with NIL and the COVID stuff that messed with people's eligibility and all that, I care less for sure.
A lot
I think
less.
I don't know about a lot. It's still wide receiver.
For me.
It's not tight end or, but anyway, so, okay, good. Well, that's fair for you and maybe not for me. I think for me, it's like, I'm trying to look for specific situations where it makes me doubt things. For example, Xavier Legette. When you're 25 going up against 19-year-olds or whatever, right? And you didn't break out to your 5th year until and only because Juice Wells was injured, I'm a little more skeptical, say, than Malik Washington, who suffered through 4 years of the Northwestern offense before transferring to Virginia, and now he's everybody's favorite sleeper. You know what I mean? And I think he's like, I'm more okay with his age than I am with Legette's age. I may have Legette ranked higher, but as far as that particular slice of the picture, I'm more skeptical of Legette's, being old than I am of, say, Malik Washington.
Malik Washington.
Yeah.
I'm putting him on my list right now. He's
at the Shrine Bowl. He played 4 years at Northwestern, and then in Virginia, broke out at Virginia. Kind of like he's slot, but he's got like a stocky build, physical, tough, compact. Matt Waldman, underrated at the moment. Big play upside, good hands, pretty good route runner, good adjustments. Will be a starter within his first contract.
Interesting.
So
okay.
People like him a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
But just as an
Sounds
example,
a little like Malachi Corley.
right? Yeah. So
Although, well, that's why I want to have a nice discussion on him when we get to it, because
All
I
right.
like a good sized discussion on him.
So
Um,
let's talk about you saying only the top. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. So just to continue what I was saying, like for me, there are three
Yeah.
elite, absolute elite wide receivers in this class, and then a shitload of really, really interesting guys for different reasons could be very, very good.
Are your three Marvin, Neighbors, and Adunze, or do you have somebody
Oh
else?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I have for me, it's MHJ in his own. It's like Calvin. We'll call him the Calvin Williams tier. Calvin Johnson tier. Sorry, I always do that. Calvin Williams was the wide receiver that played on the other side of Arkansas, Fred Barnett, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, MHJ is in the Calvin Johnson tier, and then just below that, Neighbors and Adunze are kind of neck and neck. I have Adunze a little bit higher actually because I mean they both have just such elite traits that are just different from each other. They're different wide receivers that I could both see being just star wide receiver ones in the league. As far as you saying that you would take MHJ and Neighbors over Jake and Daniels, I'm not there. Like I want the quarterbacks over Neighbors, but with MHJ, I keep asking myself if Bijan was the 101 last year and there were three really good quarterbacks, what and MHJ is this interdimensional prospect as
Interdimensional.
as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like somebody that I can expect to be on my team 3 to 5 years longer than the running back. Why don't have him at 101, especially when Caleb is not a slam dunk. Like I don't see him as like Trevor level prospect. He scares me a little. Whereas Trevor didn't scare me until he got into the NFL. Then he scared me.
Yeah. I think first of all, I wouldn't hate somebody taking Harrison 101. I'm probably not going to do it, but I just did a mock that we're going to, that Dave Heilman is writing up. It was like a bunch of us and we did like 5 rounds and he took Marvin, 101, even though it was a super flex. So I get it. I think for me, it's probably because I don't know that he's the Bijan of the wide receivers. I think I've got Neighbors much closer to him than I had Gibbs. Yeah.
I don't know if I have I don't know if I have him as the 101. But it's definitely 102 at least.
Let me ask you this.
At lowest.
So I heard early on that some people were saying, well, maybe Neighbors is the wide receiver one in this class, more polished, more refined. Marvin Harrison might have a higher ceiling, but Neighbors is more pro ready, right? I saw some folks push back on that too. So what do you, because I'm going to ask you another question about Neighbors. So what do you feel about that question about Neighbors?
No, I don't see it that way at all. I think I think they're all 3 of them are ready to rock.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that actually Dallas pointed out was that Harrison, when faced with press, is better. But, it's like, I get that. And I get every year we can always fill in, like in half these wide receivers in the spreadsheet, struggles with press coverage. How much are they getting these days? Everybody's playing zone. And if you're fast enough, they're giving you cushion and not pressing you. So.
Right. And you can be moved around and sent in motion. And and all 3 of these guys, I do think have really good release packages. Neighbors in particular, you can't even get your hands on that guy.
Which leads me to my next question about Neighbors. And that is the way the NFL is played today. Obviously, I'm not saying Marvin Harrison Jr. is like, he's the old X alpha that isn't used anymore. I'm not saying that. I think that's maybe more for like Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette. to a certain degree, Devontae
80
Walker,
Mitchell.
yeah, well, a little higher on Mitchell, but I feel you on that one, right? But with the way the NFL is played, is Neighbors a better bet to be dynasty wide receiver 1 this time next year than Marvin Harrison or a Dunze are?
Right now, no, I don't see that. Neighbors is not like, yes, he has absolute electricity all over him. Like, he's the best burst out of any wide receiver. But Marvin Harrison's game is much more polished. He's a better route runner. And wow, those hands on Neighbors are sick too, though. Like, he makes insane catches. So, like, I don't know. It's like saying which of the Stooges you like better. I like the fourth one personally.
Well, we'll get into that a little later. So, okay, then, so when I said the first 6 or 7, and you said the first 3, for me, that next tier of, in some order, Troy Franklin, Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, and I'm going to say Ladd McConkey, that's a chunk for me, and I still feel confident about those 4. And then it's Wild West. Then it's the Wild West for me after those 7.
You said those a little fast.
Sure. Franklin, Worthy,
okay,
Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey.
Okay. I have Adonai Mitchell, I believe.
I have Adonai right below Ladd at the moment. But as he's technically 12th in my Superflex rankings, 80 Mitchell. But that's only because we haven't decided which running backs we like yet. But
that is a tier for me at the moment. So let's talk about my favorite in that group. Are you good with that? Yeah.
And I know who your favorite is. I thought you were going to say Ladd. I thought you were going to say Run LMC.
No, I love Ladd McConkey. That he's my he gets my vote to be like the Tank Dell of this. Like, not that he's the same type of player, not the same player, but kind of like same stature. You know what I mean? But no, I love Brian Thomas, man. That guy. Out of all of these guys, I could see him developing into a wide receiver 1. So
yeah,
he's got the size, he's got the speed. Mostly what we see is him just torching guys over the top at, what is he? 6'4"?
6'4", 205 for now.
Yeah, so he'll come in at what? 6'2",
6'2.5", and 190.
Yeah, but like, he looks tall and lean. Like, he looks bigger than the other guys, and he just torches motherfuckers right down the field, and that's what we see most of him, right? But you do also see bubble screens, little pop passes and stuff around the line of scrimmage, which he's very good with. He's got great yak ability, really good vision. Like, if he was in a different package, he's got the mental mindset to play running back, right? The problem with him is the mid range. It's just there's really no examples. So there's very few examples of it.
That's kind of the worry I have, because like the way I'm looking at him is he has enough of that combination of both size, athleticism, and smarts and polish, where I feel safe with him relative to a Keon Coleman, a Leggett, right? You know, I'm comfortable saying
guys I'm skeptical.
I'm confident in him, but very little in the short and intermediate areas of the field, kind of.
So,
and that's kind of where the NFL's being played these days, and so I kind of worry about that.
Okay, here are the two schools of thought on this, and we discussed this quite a bit last week on War Games, which is back, by the way.
Woo!
So, my school of thought is, just because he wasn't asked to do it doesn't mean he can't, right? And when he was asked to do it, he was pretty good at it. He can gain separation. Is he Devontae Smith? No. He's not that type of player.
I mean,
He's
who
a
among
little
us
stiff.
are?
Right. He's a little stiff in the hips. He's not going to break a guy down just purely on route running. But the physical attributes like that he does have, he absolutely could run all of the routes that Puka Nacua runs and better. And he can get over the top easier. Like the problem DBs are going to have with him is that like they're going to have to give him cushion. So it's going to make him just automatically coverage is going to be softer, right? In the intermediate area. So I think he can do it. And I think there's going to be a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I'm sorry. And the other school of thought is he wasn't asked to do it in college because they didn't think he could do it. Right. And you see Malik Neighbors making these crazy catches all over the field and running every route in the route tree. Why isn't Brian Thomas doing it? It's because he can't. Right. That's the other school of thought. And that is in my brain. And I'm not just saying that's now, like, I'm not poo-pooing it. But what I've landed on with Brian Thomas is right away, you have a player that can get over the top, an extremely useful tool in the NFL, something every team is looking for is a big player that can run fast, right? He can also contribute a lot around the line of scrimmage. Like I said, he's really good on bubble screens, handoffs, that kind of thing. He's really good with that. And he's good in a contested catch situation. He's actually got really good hands. There were some concentration drops. He's got really good hands. And there are examples of him high pointing the ball in the end zone and being a contested catch guy in the end zone, right? So if you combine the deep threat with softer coverage underneath because of it, touches around the line of scrimmage, and then a red zone threat with that, you have a very useful player while he learns to polish his intermediate game.
Fair. Very fair. My position is
there's a huge narrative there, right? I get that.
I mean, we're trying to figure out what is the path to success for these guys. And then figuring out that path on February 8th, it's a lot of narrative, right? Like it's a lot of
sure.
The position that I have is that he's my sixth and that Franklin and Worthy have higher ceilings. And that's why I have them ahead of him. What do you think of that position?
So I actually think that Franklin and Worthy are both better players right now. They're both more well-rounded. Both of them can separate in the intermediate. And both of them just have probably better speed. Troy Franklin might be the fastest wide receiver in this class.
He's going to be fast. And Worthy's going to test fast too.
Xavier Worthy might be the fastest wide receiver in this class. Like those are the two burners. I have questions about Franklin's toughness. And also there's drops. The hands aren't amazing. I'd give him a B plus.
Yeah.
That's what I saw anyway.
I think the people who the Franklin defenders, let's say, would say that those two things improved in 2023, and you got to watch the right tape or whatever.
I didn't watch 22 tape. I watched 23 tape so far.
Okay, so there you go. Right, and you still don't like it. Okay, interesting. Yeah,
but it's not that I don't like. I love Troy Franklin. I have him probably next. Like he's probably my fifth right now. The speed is just game changing, and he's pretty polished. Like he's got good lateral agility. He can sink his hips. He can definitely gain separation. The drops are going to be a little frustrating though. But I mean, Mike Evans and Amari Cooper have made careers out of having duck hands. Sorry, I borrowed that.
When people talk about like drops and drops don't matter and all this discourse about it, I get it in the sense of like statistically why drops aren't mattering. I think drops matter as far as like QB confidence and whether you're going to be first
matter if
read
you're
and stuff like
Jalen
that.
Rager and
Yeah.
you can't get on the field because of it.
Because like the next thing I was going to say is the leaders in drops this year, the top two were Puka and Tyreek. So yeah,
Right on. Well, yeah, they're also
getting targeted the most.
Targets, right?
Yeah, that's why.
So that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But like Nelson Aguilar could have been a great wide receiver if he had decent hands.
Who's the one in that viral Philly clip? If he caught it, I wish he could catch it like Jeffrey or something. Alshon Jeffrey or
Yeah, that was Alshon Jeffries.
Didn't somebody like catch a baby falling from a burning building? What was going on there? I forget.
Yeah, someone caught a baby falling from a burning building, and it was like right after Alshon had, I think it was a 4th down drop pass that he dropped to cost us a playoff game, basically. Yeah, I forget the exact quote, but it was something about if that was Alshon, that baby be dead.
Oh, I love Philly. I love Philly. God damn. So then it's the Wild West. We've talked a little bit about being skeptical of guys like Coleman and Leggett. We're sort of, on the fence-ish, I guess, about with AD Mitchell at this point.
They're different guys for me, though. So Leggett, I'm not worried about the testing. He's gonna like possibly be like DK level tester. He's a big, strong, fast man. The problem I have with him is the skill. I don't know if the skill level is there or not. He's maybe too stiff. The only thing that keeps Leggett in the conversation at all for me is the fact that DK Metcalf exists in the NFL. Right? Sure. He's the only player but he's not even as big and strong. Like there is only one DK. It's kind of like trying to compare someone to Debo. Like you can't. There's only one Debo. So
and to be fair to his 1-year wonder in his 5th year, were some extenuating circumstances like depth chart. There was a coaching change. He came into college as a 190-pound quarterback, right? Like these are all things I learned from the Debbie Royale guys when they were doing a show. So like, I'll even say my knock on him before about the age and all that. There's even some extenuating circumstances to that. Yeah.
I just don't love the tape.
Yeah,
I just don't know if he translates.
He did okay at the Senior Bowl. I don't know that he did anything that really like stuck out as far as improving his stock.
Yeah, so, I would love to have heard about him dominating some guys, especially with like the secondary talent at the Senior Bowl was supposed to be subpar. So I really wanted to hear about some of these wide receivers dominating.
Yeah, and coming in about 1.5 to 2 inches shorter than we thought you were when your claim to fame is size.
Right.
Not good.
Yeah. He's shriveling to me. Now, Keon Coleman's a different story altogether. I really like the skill level. I want to see how he tests. So if you're Drake London, T. Higgins without speed, or Pickens, that's the type of player I'm seeing him as. Like really good contested catch, outside X, hold it down, beat press coverage all day, hold down the boundary type of player. But if you don't have speed, you can't play that position and be useful for fantasy. You can play that position in the NFL if he like, let's say he runs like a 4.55 or a 4.6, like I'm afraid he might. You can play the position in the NFL and you might actually be a starter, but you might also be David Bell.
I'm fascinated by this because the way I picture my take on Keon and why I'm skeptical is almost the inverse, in that I think his functional athleticism will be fine and perhaps even impressive, although his straight line speed with the 40
that's what I'm worried about.
I think has been questioned.
Not necessarily the 40 either. It's just, does he look like a fast wide receiver? Like, does he look like he can, beat a wide receiver deep?
Or my knock on him is the route running, is the separation and twitch, is the actually contested catch. Is interesting because I think in his final season, he had like a 30% success on contested catches. So he
Really?
turned 50-50 balls into 30-70 balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
Okay, but I want to see all those situations now.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Because it could be subjective
I think
as
he's
to
got
whether he had a chance or not.
I think he's got better ball skills than Quentin Johnson. They're not the same player, but that's the vibes that I have this year. That's
I don't think there's.
my big dude who I'm doubting because he's not good, not polished enough.
Gotcha. Okay. I think the polish is actually there, to the point where, like, he can get some NFL coaching and be fine. No, he's not twitchy. He's not. He's not. I'm trying to think about like just a pure separator. Devontae Smith. I keep using him. I'll use him as my example. He's not a pure separator. That's not the type of player he is. But I do like the ball skills, and the hands are really good. And I just think he's he's just a good football player. Knows how to beat soft spots in zone. I think he could be very useful if he's fast enough. So,
Interesting.
yeah, the testing is going to be huge for me. Like I actually, that's kind of, I see David Bell in him. I just want, if he can be athletic enough and look good in the passing drills in the combine and that kind of stuff, then he can move up to like the T. Higgins, Drake London kind of Pickens level. But we'll see.
I'm really glad we had this conversation because the waters that I'm swimming in is like the Keon doubter.
Oh, I'm skeptical. But all right, so
they're doubters for the different reasons that you are. And like I was just talking to somebody today who said he's a 3rd round rookie pick.
Oof. So the reason I haven't like really buried him yet, like I said, I want to see the testing, but on War Games, Chad has him as his 4th receiver. He's all about him, loves him, thinks he's going to be a star.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk
Chad
about.
Doesn't get real into the technical shit. So if you ask him why, he'll say because he's good. He's a good fucking wide receiver, man.
Oh yeah. In the end, that's what a lot of us are doing, right? Like, I mean, he's a. So let's talk about Mr. Malachi Corley, right? So the case for him, obviously, the toughness, the build, the yak, the breaking tackles, concentration, pretty good hands, nothing really to knock there. We had some questions in the Senior Bowl. We wanted to see him. How is he as a route runner? Particularly, how is he a route runner past 5 or 10 yards because of the really low ADOT? And it's not so much the low ADOT is a bad thing. And then you're getting the manufactured touch and the yak. Like, it works for certain guys. But if that's like the only thing you can do, then your path to success is just narrower, right? Yeah. He showed a little bit of that at the Senior Bowl, we heard, and you pointed that out in our DMs. I don't know that he showed a whole lot of it, and I still have my questions about the fact that, if you'll allow me to rhyme for a little bit, he's getting all that rack and yak in the MAC. You're forcing those missed tackles against. No offense, I love Maction Tuesdays and Wednesday nights in November, but some of those guys are going to be selling insurance.
Yeah. You don't watch that football. You don't watch those games.
Actually, when I used to bet on college football, I watched it a lot more, and it's really exciting.
Oh, of course.
It's almost got this feel of like high school football, but like it's weird. It's just I enjoyed watching it. Like I enjoyed.
When I bet Boise State and Hawaii were my favorite teams because they always played late, and I was always chasing it.
Yeah. So So where are you at with Corley now? I'm a little split on him still. I see both sides of the story. He's the type of guy where I know, and maybe this is a good point to have the conversation about landing spot. You know, my whole shtick this offseason, my mantra is that landing spot matters more than it used to. You, I think, rightly say that we're bad at predicting what will happen in those situations. And I guess my response to that is we have to kind of at least try, especially after like the first couple tiers of guys, because we've seen landing spot scheme, coaching, fit, make or break fantasy careers, for guys like, Tank Dell and Puka, who people had their doubts about. And here's a guy, Corley in the right team, I think I'm on board even with my doubts about the Mac. On the wrong team, I'm not. I'm maybe a little more skeptical. So right now he is my wide receiver 12.
So, okay. So that's the trick, isn't it? Finding how much to weight the landing spot, because we know a lot less than the actual team they're on, right? The coaches know a lot better than we do. And deciphering training camp speak is really tough, man. There's a lot of landmines there.
Would you say though?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry that hindsight, a Tank Dell separator who left the Senior Bowl early because he got a good enough reports, got day 2 capital, and was in a Shanahan offense. We should have seen that coming. Puka, high targets per route run, may not be a good athlete, but high football IQ with really strong hands in a McVay offense with a quarterback like Stafford, he'll throw it. Like, he'll throw trust balls. Mm-hmm. We should have seen that coming.
Yeah, but there was also the question about what, number one, is Stafford even going to play last offseason? Yeah. And number two, does he have anything left? He did not look like this year's Matthew Stafford the year before.
And he still had Cooper Kupp to deal with. So yeah.
He looked great this year. He was vintage Matthew Stafford this year.
He was very good. Yeah.
Just keep in mind that the other guy is still there. The other guy could still show his head at any point.
Which brings me to the conversation we had where I predicted Matt Stafford had, I think, 2 years at most left. You said 3 to 5, and it's starting to look like you might be right. Like, I was right in 2022. It looked bad, and now you might look right. But I'm sorry. Go ahead with Corley and landing spot and all that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the trick, though, is figuring out how much to weight the landing spot. I've made mistakes in the past with Trey Sermon, weighting it too much. One cut runner going to a Shanahan offense, got the toughness. They took him day 2, third round. Mm-hmm. They traded up to do it. This is it. San Fran, let's go. Right, wheels up. I traded up to get him in the high second round everywhere I could. We know how that worked out. A.J. Brown going to a Tennessee offense that would rather run. Tannehill's the quarterback. How good's this guy even going to be? How fast is he? How good is he? Blah, blah, blah. I took him basically out of my consideration. Like I moved him to the end of the second round. So, Quentin Johnston, my evaluation, I can sum up last year is that I had him as a piece of shit as a football player.
Yeah, we did not like him. We did not like him.
No, but in a perfect situation, dodged that landmine, had him at the end of the second round.
I remember listening to
the landing spot.
I remember listening to a Dynasty podcast with two guys whose opinions I very much respect, and they were almost like condescendingly, humorously saying, like, yeah, he's got flaws, but you've got a real life first round wide receiver built like a condor attached to Justin Herbert. What are you doing? And here we are. And,
He's
and
got-
here we are in the sense that everybody now is even lower on him than me.
I'm going to find 2 random items on my desk. All right. This is a pen holder. This is a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he's got as hands. This is what he walks around with as hands every day. And trying to catch, like, I wish people could see this. But seriously, like, I mean, some of the drops that he had this year that were automatic touchdowns, which is disgusting. That's not going to get better.
And it's not going to fly with Jim Harbaugh.
No, he'll lucky make it through the year.
So where are you at with Corley?
So with Corley, yes, landing spot is going to matter with him because I'm going to for him to even like be on my second round radar at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to be confident that the coach that takes him is going to use him right. Yeah, he's bigger Rondale Moore. You know, he's 5'10" instead of 5'7".
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't excite me that much. Can we think of a player? I mean, it took Cordarrelle Patterson 8 years to be relevant. You know, can we think of a player in that mold that was actually good?
I'm bad at this kind of stuff.
Percy Harvin.
Mold as far as like build?
Yeah,
wasn't Steve Smith kind of bowling bally?
His skills, but a skill set as well. Steve Smith could catch a ball downfield. He was a downfield receiver.
Yeah.
Percy Harvin is the only player with this skill set that was actually successful in the NFL that I can think of. But that play style of his, it's a very similar play style to Corley, if you don't remember him.
Barely
led him to get hurt on a constant basis and end his career.
That I remember. So you don't see a Debo ceiling in Malachi Corley.
I said earlier that I truly believe you can't compare players to Debo. It's not, you don't see other players out there doing it. You're more likely to get Laviska Shenault.
Another thing concerning about Corley is his 2022, including and especially the number of rushing carries he got, was better than his 2023. So, and like you want to see if you're a senior in a MAC that doesn't happen. And in a Western Kentucky offense that's kind of built for you to do that kind of stuff. And if you're that far ahead of the competition, you're I mean, I know it's a counting stat, but you went from I think 1,200 yards to 900 something yards from his junior to senior year. I am so split and torn and undecided about Malachi Corley. Yeah.
If he's hanging around in somewhere in the third round, I would probably take a flyer on him. That's kind of how I see him.
So I'm just looking at mock draft database just to kind of see. I know it aggregates a lot. Right now they have him projected as a real life third round pick.
I would surprise the shit out of me.
Ranked it.
I pay a little more attention to him.
94 overall, they have him ranked.
So with the depth of wide receiver in this class, that would surprise the shit out of me. But Jaden Reed going as high as he did last year surprised the shit out of me too.
You said he was a practice squad player.
Yeah.
I don't pull receipts, so I do think it's funny.
Let me tell you something about Jaden Reed. I was not wrong.
Okay.
They just committed to using him in a way that he would be successful. Right? He's not a lead receiver. He's not a downfield player. They use him around the line of scrimmage a lot, and that's why.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think you
now.
Really...
If Malachi Corley goes to a team that commits to using him as much as they use Jaden Reed and in the way that they use Jaden Reed, I think he'd be very successful and could be this year's Jaden Reed. Actually,
I don't disagree with the usage thing, but I did disagree that of his talent was practice squad level.
I just didn't think he's just so raw. I just didn't think that they would make a point to carve out that role for him. Although they did take him in the second round, though, right?
Second or
So
third,
I
yeah,
guess,
day two, yeah.
yeah, I guess I should have realized that if the Packers are gonna commit that kind of resource to a young wide receiver, they're probably gonna try to make it work.
And to be fair, we didn't know how Jordan Love was going to develop either. And
Sure.
I think Jordan Love not being Aaron Rodgers and not being a little emperor on the offense kind of allowed things to organically develop well instead of like Aaron Rodgers being cranky and not wanting motion in his offense and like throwing to the two guys that he trusts.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else lower in the list of receivers that is kind of intriguing to you as far as you want to see more? Is a sleeper? You doubt him? I mean, I'm me. I have my spreadsheet. I can, but I can be a weird. I can be a weirdo and talk about Jaquan Baker and Javon Baker and Jaquan Burton and Jamari Thrash. I can talk about them if you want, but
we can talk about Jabari Thrash. It's with a B, right?
I have him as Jamari. I'm not
Jamari. Okay, Jamari Thrash, and we can talk about him and Brendan Rice later if you want. Not right now.
Okay.
But I do have some. I have watched both of those guys.
Okay.
No, let's talk about two guys that are probably next to each other. One that I'm high on and one that I'm low on. All right. So high on Roman Wilson.
Oh yeah.
Low on Devontae Walker.
Oh yeah. Agree on both.
So Roman Wilson just looks like a sleeper. I mean, although he's getting a lot of buzz these days.
He's getting day two buzz now after the Senior Bowl.
I'm thinking like I would not be flabbergasted if he went like to the Chiefs at 32.